Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Technology Innovation Hub channel. So this time it's going to be the first video with regards to microservices. So this recording is going to be listed on the microservices portal. So if you take a look at our Technology Innovation Hub channel, so at the moment on the playlist we don't have anything on the microservices portal. At the moment we have Oracle and generic portal videos are there. So this will be the first thing on microservices, right? All right, let's get started, right? Let me share my screen. Yes, okay. Right, so, all right. So microservices, right? So, yes, if you take a look at back the history, right? So I think most of you know this is a concept started way back in if I'm not mistaken, it was something called micro web services, right? Around 2005, 2005, 6, right? So then after that, got the terminology again arise into the industry in 2010, 11, right? As microservices. So real emerging of microservices term comes from 2010, 11, right? You can Google and see that, right? So just this is for your awareness, right? And we know Netflix and Amazon, they were the early adapters, right? They were the early adapters as organizations of this microservices as a software architectural style. So we really know what is software architectural style and all, right? So even now you know this Netflix, right, and Amazon. They are, I mean, almost these both organizations are heavily running microservices and so very successfully they are running microservices. And you know about Netflix Eureka Discovery Service. So we'll talk about those things more detail later, right? So anyway, the first thing I just want to address you topic, the industrial analysis with microservices. So the reason is, so initially it's going to be a little bit of discussion, maybe some little bit of theory and I mean, why we really need to get into this subject of microservices. We need to see what is our scope and why, right? Objectives, right? So, I mean, if anyone want to start a career with microservices, if anyone want to start a mission with microservices, so the objectives has to be quite clearly listed and well comprehensively defined. Right? So I'll give you some overview, right? So that you can add points for your objectives. So if you want to start a career and develop a career with microservices, there are a lot of opportunities, right? Because in the market share, right, microservice, there's a big demand, right? They hold a big market share and a lot of industry segments, right? We'll talk more detail, right? E-commerce, healthcare, telco, most industries, they are into microservices. A lot of migrations are happening, right? All right. So the very first thing is this architecture, right? Software architecture, right? So even though it's mentioned architecture, it's going to be software architecture and architectural patterns, AR patterns and design patterns. Right? So this we'll talk about more details because this is the very first video or the recording on microservices. I'm not going to go into more details, right? The whole objective of this video, right, or series of videos, there we are going to have multiple sessions of this interaction, the introductory video, right? So the whole objective is for you to give you an awareness, right? Awareness as to what is microservices, why as a beginner or as a middle person or as an experienced person, why I should start or why I should further enhance my knowledge of microservices, what are the career opportunities, right? As a technology, where is microservices in the industry, right? So what are the languages supporting to? Likewise, just to give you an overview, introductory level overview, and I'll be touching on certain things in the industry as well. So that is the whole objective of this initial few sessions on microservices, right? So later we will dig into more. because I'm going to have parallel sessions. Because in the industry, because these videos are open, right? Most of beginners may watch, right? As an intellectual, a person who want to just start with microservices, he may also watch these videos, right? And the intermediate level, right? Experience level. So likewise, there are different segments in the market who will be watching. So I'll be addressing them in parallel. For example, there will be going to be a separate set of videos for introductory people who just trying to start the microservices as the career, right, for software development, right? Then in the middle level, right, so people who are already aware of microservices, then they might be thinking of, okay, how am I going to further optimize my microservices with service mesh, right? Instead of service discovery, how am I going to implement Istio service mesh, right? Which is mass of, I mean, for let's say for MTLS, right? Mutual transport layer security, right? For certificate authority and all, right? So that's the intermediate level kind of, right? Then in the advanced level, right? So how I'm going to derive an enterprise level solution with microservices? How I'm going to deal with the migration, right? That means currently there are a lot of monolith applications who is migrating. In the industry, there are a lot of challenges migrating monolith to monolith is existing, maybe the service-oriented architecture, right? How it's going to be migrated to the microservices. So maybe that's kind of advanced thing, right? So even the middle people can take a look at that, right? So I'll be touching upon those things separately in parallel. So in this channel, in this portal, in the Technology Innovation Hub channel, in the microservices portal, so those videos will appear time to time continuously. So you can educate and you can learn, you can innovate, right? So that's just to give an idea and the objective, right? All right. So first most thing, architecture, right? Because right, I'll be coming to this one with a document reference later on the down the level we have that one. So microservices is a software architectural style because these software architectures have been there in the industry, right? So if you just go back one step, just before the microservices, we have the monolith architecture or the service-oriented architecture. On the way down further, we have the object-oriented architecture, right? And even further, if I go down, I will show you the document. So likewise, so there are software architectural styles. So microservices also kind of a software architectural style. Because anyway, you can just start writing a program. But if you are thinking about enterprise grade solution, right? I mean, let's say you want to develop a software, and you want to standardize it. Right? You are not going to just give a solution for the client requirement, right? You want to make an enterprise grade solution. Then you can't just start developing softwares like that, right? First thing is you need to identify what is my architectural style, in which architectural style I am going to design this software, right? So maybe it's going to be a multi-tenancy software, right? Okay. So that's why one of the architectural style is microservices, right? So once you derive the microservices architecture, then you have to go in, right? You can't just start developing just having identified the architecture. Then the layer two is architectural pattern. What are the architectural patterns I'm going to use in my software design? Then step three, further down, you're going to have the design patterns, right? So once you identify design patterns only, you can really start developing your software. For example, you can say API gateway design pattern, right? In microservices, we have circuit breaker design pattern, right? Okay. So discovery server design pattern. So likewise, there are design patterns which are really going to be implementation level components. We'll talk to more details later with regards to design pattern. So that's why just a very definition. So I mean, architecture patterns and design patterns. So microservices, right? It falls under those. I mean, entire three portals: architecture pattern, design pattern, right? Then enterprise solution, that's why I just mentioned. It's not just a solution, we need to have enterprise grade solution, right? Because again, a beginner may not be able to start right away with enterprise solutions. Because before starting enterprise solution, you need to understand what is an enterprise is, right? What is an enterprise is. You have to take a look at the client organization as an enterprise. Because when you go to the enterprise, you have business architecture, you have information system architecture, technology architecture. Likewise, there are architectural building blocks. You need to map your architectural patterns and design patterns towards those things. Right? It's a challenging thing, understood, but any person who is having 10 plus years experience in the industry, maybe in software development industry, maybe in whatever IT industry, should be ready to take the challenge of developing enterprise grade solutions, not just solutions. If the person is less than 10 years, maybe between 5 to 10 years, he might still think about just deriving solutions by integrating several technological things. But yet, he also should attempt to go for enterprise grade solutions. Right? Less than 5 years, acceptable. You can start with solutions. That's okay. But beyond 6 to 7, 8 years, yeah, 10 years is a must to think about enterprise grade solution, right? Okay. Yeah, top software trends for 2021. Yeah, so you can Google those. Yeah, I'm not going to show this thing now because you can Google those. In the top software trends for 2021, microservices is in the list. In the top 5 list actually. Microservices and monolith both together exist together, coexist together actually. Monolith, microservices both coexist together because not every application is a candidate for microservice architecture style. We can't be pushing microservice for every solution, right? And there are eligibility criteria, right? For example, if the particular software, right, if the particular organization doesn't have a rapid growth, not a highly scalable application, not much of load balancer required, is a mine application, then microservices is not suitable for them. Still, you can survive with some other, maybe monolith architecture is much better for them. But if the organization is dealing with heavily scalable, heavy load, right? Too much of application, I mean, a lot of end users are connecting, right? You need resource intensive thing, then microservices may be the candidate. It's a candidate for microservice architecture style. Okay. So likewise, right? So then monolith to microservice migration, that's what I just told you, right? So these are all in industry, right? Then I mentioned about service mesh, right? So service mesh, Istio is one of the good examples. We have other service mesh also, right? So we need to learn all of those things in detail. So I just want to make the points here, right? Service mesh, we know microservices, when you take microservices, those are independent components, right? Right? Loosely coupled architecture, not tightly integrated, but coherence is there. Microservices need to communicate to each other between APIs, right? REST API calls has to happen. So somebody need to tell the state of microservice 1 to microservice 2. So if you have the service mesh will look after that. Instead of having the service discovery like Eureka server, discovery server like Eureka server, you can have a service mesh like Istio, which will do a much better job. So we'll talk about more things later, right? So you have service fabric. Service fabric is another thing which I mean Azure. I think most of the Azure they are mostly dealing with service fabric, right? So it's another solution. Yeah, again you can use with microservices together, right? Kubernetes, yeah, it is about containerization, right? So that's I mean, of course, microservices. I think is there right? Most the next topic. Second level microservice adaptation. Why it is there? Because microservices had a rapid growth since it debuted since it started at 2010, 2015, 16 years. There was a rapid growth, but again, due to the complexity and several issues, the speed was, I can't say a drop. There was a little bit of slow down, right? But now again it's picking up. That's why it says second wave of microservice adaptation. The main reason behind this is containerization, Docker images, right? Okay. So now what's going to happen with this continuous integration, continuous delivery architecture with DevOps, right? Microservices again picking up because microservice is a very good candidate for containerized environment with CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery platform with DevOps. Right? We will talk about more details later. Especially CI/CD will be greatly detailed at this on our DevOps portal, which is a separate portal, but it will get interlinked with this microservices as well. Because with Kubernetes, container orchestration will take place. these containers, each container will occupy a microservice. That's what going to be, right? And CI/CD means what? As the code checks in, maybe one portion of the code is related to microservice. So it's going to trigger the build and it's going to get deployed. So deployment will take place in the as a container in the Kubernetes cluster. Right? So orchestration means depending on the end user request, right? The request may be coming to the gateway, right? So depending on the request, so orchestration will happen. Orchestration means relevant application will start, right? That means the relevant image will start, it will cause a Docker container drop, then the application will become accessible. The application is a microservice. So likewise, right? So anyway, we are going to talk more details with regard to this. So that's why second wave going to be, it's almost started with Kubernetes, right? Edge computing, drives microservices. You know what is edge computing, right? Those are new terms that search. I'm not going to talk much details about that. Edge computing, right? Edge devices, right? And web of microservices. Yeah, those are again going to be new things. So we'll be discussing more details, right? In regard to those things in the future sessions, right? Then, oh yeah, we have failures. Microservices failures also there, right? So again, we will discuss more things later, right? So the time is just to give you an idea about industrial analysis of microservices, and it's not going to finish here. If you take a look at the industry again, so these are just maybe some conceptual level, theoretical, but if you look at the industry, you can say from monolith to microservices, 10 examples in the global transition. So these people have successfully, organizations have very successfully migrated from monolith to microservices. Maybe 10, like there are many, maybe more likewise. So I have selected 10 out of many. Amazon, Best Buy, Coca-Cola, eBay, HC, Git, Netflix, so Spotify, you can see if you Google it, you will find it, right? So they have successfully migrated all live microservices, right? Very popular, right? Very powerful. Netflix video stream, Amazon, you know, right? Again, HC Compute, right? So Uber, very powerful, right? And so these are a lot of busy network. They have handled a lot of traffics, right? Okay, so but again, Microservices is capable of managing that, right? And again, if you take a look at the market again, if you go to this website, how to okay, if you go to this place, you can find more details. And this is just example I'm just showing you, right? So yeah, you can do your own Google search, but this is just example, right? If you go into this one of these websites, right? So you will see some statistical analysis. For example, microservice architecture market, right, by component. So by in 2060, 2026, in the future, you can see the growth, how it's going to be the service sector, right? This is in 2018, right-hand side, this is in 2026, going to be, right? So the annual growth rate, CAGR means the annual growth rate is 20.1. So likewise, again, we have microservice architecture market. So you can see on-premise, on the cloud, right? By 2026, this much of growth will be there, right? Okay. So again, you have microservices architecture market by industry. So that's why I mentioned earlier, there are many industries dealing with microservices. BFSI means the banking financial sector, like banking sector. It's going to have a huge growth, right? BFX, right? And again, we have manufacturing, we have retail and e-commerce sector, one of the most, right? E-commerce sector, right? And healthcare, right? Government and others, okay? Telco, right? So these are industries. So you are going to have many opportunities as you for your career with microservices, right? So just visit those things and take a look at that. So we have the industries listed again here, right? So organization, yeah, it's okay. So just take a look at it. Microservice architecture, market key players, yeah, IBM, Oracle. So these all are going to give you a long-term career partner. I mean, I have addressed this one in the general portal. You know, Oracle, Microsoft, all will give you a long-term career partner. It's going to be a lifetime career vendor for you, career partner, right? So with microservices also it is going to be same, because these organizations are heavily supporting microservices, right? Dataware, CA Technologies, Software IG, right? IBM, Oracle, right? Tata Consultancy Service. Okay, fine, right? Right. So how to start with microservices as a career option? So now I think I have almost told this one now, right? So if you want to start a career, so what we have to do, I have already told this one. I have divided the resources into three sectors now, because I have mentioned the initial, the beginners, and I have mentioned intermediate, I have mentioned the higher range, right? So likewise, you can start the career as a beginner. Intermediate people you can enhance, and advanced people can think about enterprise grade solutions. Likewise, okay. Right. So let's go further. Let's go further. Okay. Step one, I have again going to go to a little bit detail about the software architectural style. Right. Software architectural style. Right. So in step one, so basic explanation, I have a document for this theory, software architectural style. So these are the architectural styles that you are going to have. This one. Okay. So this is what software architectural style versus architectural pattern versus design patterns. An architectural style is a conceptual way of how the system will be created and will work. Conceptual way how the system will be created and how it will work. So these are the architectural styles that we know, right? From the history, client server, component based, layered, hexagonal, message box. You may remember all of those in history, n-tier, and now again you are getting closer to the current level, object oriented. You may remember with Visual Basic and or C++ and all, we had those things like unit Java, right? Separated presentation layer, yeah. So and search-oriented architecture. So here comes the microservices. It's comes under later section, right? So microservices with service Docker based containers. Microservices, Docker based containers, right? It all goes together. Multi-tenancy architecture and containerization, right? Docker all goes together. So we'll discuss more details, but I just want to mention here the software architectural style. So the very first thing, if you want to design an enterprise grade solution, you have to identify what is my architectural style, or based on what architectural style I'm going to design my software. So there's another emerging one, the cell architecture, right? This is an emerging one. We will discuss it later. Emerging architecture is private architectural patterns within the enterprise, right? So it's kind of a microservice style within the enterprise, right? So we will talk this one about later. If you want more interesting, just Google it. But it's just an emerging one. You don't have much details. Much case studies are not available in the internet still, right? Right. So that's the architectural style. So what's the first thing it says? An architectural style is a conceptual way of how the system will be created. Conceptual way how the system will be created at the very higher level, helicopter view, right? Then the second one comes architectural pattern. So once you identify the style, I'm going to design my software based on microservices architectural style. So then comes the layer 2 down the line. What is my pattern is going to be? It says an architectural pattern is a recurring solution to a recurring problem. Recurring solution to a recurring problem. In the case of architectural pattern, they solve the problems related to the architectural style. That's why interdependence is there. We have an example. For example, what classes will have and how will they interact in order to implement the system with a specific set of layers, what high-level modules, right? So, have in our SOA, right? This is about SOA, right? And client server and architectural pattern have an extensive impact to code base, most often impacting the whole application either horizontally likewise. Okay, architectural pattern have an extensive impact on code base, most often impacting the whole application either horizontally. That is how to structure the code inside the layer. So vertically, and that is how a request is processed from the outer layers into the inner layer. Like examples of architectural patterns, we have three-tier, microkernel, event-driven, and microservices. So don't worry about this theory that much. I just read because of the document I have there. So for the time being, just get an idea that first thing is to identify the architectural style. Then second layer is architectural pattern, and we have examples for architectural pattern. Time being, just focus on microservices. So microservices comes as a software architectural style as well as a software architectural pattern. Example for both. But just having identified these two, we won't be able to start developing. We won't be able to still have a design stage. The last thing is this design patterns. We need to identify our design patterns. That's the last thing. Just before start development, we need to identify design patterns. Design patterns differ from architectural patterns in their scope. They are more localized. They have less impact on the code base. They impact a specific section of the code base. For example, how to instantiate objects when only know what type needs to be instantiated runtime. So, okay, maybe a factory task. Oh, that's okay. So this is really the coding level, design patterns, right? Once you identify, I think we can discuss more again later. I think, but I have an example, right? Focusing the architectural style, architectural pattern, design pattern with microservices. But before that, just take a look at this analogy, right? This analogy, if you take a look at, we can put all three together like this, right? It's an analogy, right? So now we know the definitions for architectural style, we know definition for architectural pattern, we know definition for design pattern, right? Definitions we know. If you look at this analogy, you can see, think about a house, right? Think of a house. You can go up in a helicopter, right? Or you can climb into a tree, right? And look at the the roof of the house. Roof of the house. Right? Helicopter view of the house. Helicopter view. The topmost view, right? Or looking at the roof of the house from top of a tree. That's what I mentioned. This is something similar to architecture style. So at the moment, you know it very high level, this is like a house. It's true. This is maybe it's like a house. But you don't know still how many rooms in the house, what is the size of the living room, what is the where is the staircase. You don't know anything, but you know it's a house. It's a house. Because by looking at the outside, you can just determine it's a house. Right? Because you see the outer view, it looks like a house. Then number two, step two, we have the architectural pattern now. Just enter to a house from a main door and take a look at from outside. This is like architectural pattern. What we are going to do now, we are going to get off from the tree, get down from the tree, get down from the helicopter, right? We are going to go to the main door of the house, living room. You open the living room door, right? Then you are going to enter and take a look from outside, main door. Again, you are not going to get in still, but just peep into the house. Then it's like the architectural pattern. Why I am telling it's architectural pattern? Then you see, okay, now there's a living room in the house, there's a kitchen in the house, right? And there's a staircase, and there are certain rooms I can see in the house. Now you see the architectural patterns, right? I think you are getting something because architectural style, very high level, right? It looks fit, right, to this style. But when you go to the architectural pattern, you are just getting to that style and see whether we can fit into the second level of the architectural style, that is architectural pattern, right? So that's why we are now trying to identify the modules or the components, right, within the architectural style. So that's why we are identifying the component within the house now. Staircase, living room, kitchen, and study room, storeroom, likewise. We are going to differentiate the module, whether can we fit it? Can we fit our modules in our software requirements to this architectural style or not? Then in step 3, once you think, yes, it is fitting, this architectural style is going to fit in, that means my architectural pattern is okay, then I'm going to be specific. I'm going to get into a specific room. I'm going to get into a specific module in my selected architectural pattern. Then I'm trying to start developing something. I'm trying to write a code, right? I'm trying to do small component, not the whole thing, right? That's why enter a specific room, maybe study room, right? You go to the study room and see the way you are studying, like which subject you are going to read. Today is like a design pattern. That's why. So what you are going to do, what you are going to start developing with, that's your design pattern. That's why if you select the microservice architectural style, if you select the microservice architectural pattern, you have to start with, for example, maybe you are starting with your API gateway design pattern. What API gateway does, it just trying to allow the end user to get into the application via a gateway. From the UI is trying to get into the real application. And it's trying to tell, okay, you can go to this microservice, and do that microservice, likewise. So that is where one of the places you can start developing. That's why now you are really inside the house. You know this is the house is like this, these rooms, and you are going to get into the study room, and you are going to see how you are going to arrange your study room. Right? That means you are just trying to start to write small codes, right? Okay, with different design patterns. So that's the analogy. I hope you got it, right? Rather than just going to the theory with the analogy, you got an idea, right? But later, with the real practical hands-on, you may get a better comprehensive understanding on this, right? Okay, so now we have focusing architectural style, architecture pattern, design pattern with microservices. In short, microservices architectural style is an approach to develop a single application as a suite of small services, each running in its own processes, communicating with lightweight mechanism of an HTTP API, actually REST call, right? Representational state transfer. We'll learn it later, right? These services are built around business capabilities and independently deployable, fully automated deployment mechanism, right? There is a bare minimum of centralized management of these services, right, which may be written in different programming languages and used of different data storage technologies. Okay, yeah, those things are discussed. We can discuss in more detail, because you can have in a particular software design, you can have different languages for different microservices, different technologies for different microservices. There are no various types of I like the monolith architecture, but again, there are concerns, right? If you're trying to mix with a lot of technologies, again, there can be some manageability issues. So those are debatable, discussable points, right? So we need to find the best point, right? Whether you're going to, because for example, if you are doing, one of the best things is Java language. So in Java, you have Spring Boot, right? So if you are developing your application with the Microsoft application in Spring Boot, so you can stick to that, right? Rather than including Python there and Ruby there, likewise, right? So let's talk those things later, right? All right. So I hope you got the details, right? So I'm not going to go into more details with this document, because the next in this document we are going to get into this design patterns and nodes. So you can say aggregator, microservice, design pattern, and no. A lot of theory, but too early to go there. But so we will go one by one, step by step, right? So our next step is going to be step 2, API, test API in action. So we are going to develop an API with the Spring Boot, and you are going to run it and see how it will work. And before that, we need to understand some terminologies, because before you start to hands-on with microservices, before getting to the hands-on with microservices, there are certain terminologies that we need to get familiar with, right? So that we are going to start with our next step 2. Okay, so again, this I will do it in the next video. So for the time being, I'm going to stop it here. I think we spend more than 30 minutes, right? So shorter videos will be much effective. Right, so I'm going to stop here. So if you are like this video, you can subscribe to the video, right? So I will see you soon with the next video, right? Okay, have a nice day. Bye.